Hello, hello.
Hello, everybody.
First question that I have is for Alexandra, because that's a question from Arnis. He was talking this morning about the future of work, and I guess this question is it's pretty good. What are your thoughts about integrating explicit workplaces spaces into residential units, as well as workplace environments in residential developments?
So again, that's something we were already doing, and you were seeing a lot before COVID, but COVID has underlined the importance of thinking like that. So I think historically a two-bed apartment would tend to be slightly more difficult to shift because pricing-wise they would be a bit more expensive, but actually there's increasing demand for those now at the moment because people want a delineated workspace, not just a kind of one-bed studio. Similarly, all of the kind of major new developments in the UK over the past few years have been exploring some form of co-working space, maybe in the communal areas. You've seen a huge amount of, I'm on the board of Ascensus, which is one of the kind of software providers for co-working solutions. And you're seeing a huge kind of global push for not just urban centres, but actually regional provision of co-working space and much more blend. So I don't think it's about kind of the life-work kind of balance anymore. I do think it is that blend. So for people, as everyone's now had to try and work around having children at home that they weren't expecting to be there, not having an office to go into, and that kind of separation, all of us have had to think a bit more about how we utilise that space. I think it's a really interesting challenge for designers, but also for developers to be able to cost that out and deliver that quickly.
Yeah, cool. So, well, welcome to the complete panel. David, you are from Smartpixeltv.
Yep.
I guess all the way from Canada?
All the way from Canada. Good day, everybody.
Hello, good morning for you, I guess it is.
And good afternoon to everybody in the European time zone. Good to see everybody.
Yeah. And then we have Graziella. She's from Planet Smart City.
Hi, good afternoon.
Welcome to everybody. Where you're from?
I'm based in Torino.
Italy. Cool. And then we have Matt. And Matt is working at Place Technologies.
Hi guys. Also based in the UK.
Also based in the UK. Well, good to have you all with us. First question that I have for you guys for this panel is, technology is maybe changing how we live in apartments. There's also a question from Alan Patterson. Flats, apartments are generally being seen as failing in people's aspirations for space, private gardens, private space, gardens, etc. Should we stop building them right now? David, I see an amazing, nice building in your background. What do you think of this?
Actually, it's interesting because when you talk to the developers, the feeling is that it's, let's call it a knee-jerk reaction to an existing situation. That yes, for today, but like everything else, it'll cycle back. We are not seeing with our developers a slowdown in high-rise, but to Alexandra's point, there is a change in what we're offering people in those high-rises. More accommodation inside a building to accommodate for these potential conditions, better Wi-Fi, better access to internet, better access to certain things, because there's still a trend, and we're still seeing it, especially in North America, bigger push. On one hand, there's a push to the suburbs, but there's still a big push to go to still be working in an urban center. So we're not seeing a slowdown at all in this area.
I think that the people who tend to campaign for the no more apartments tend to be people who don't live in them or haven't for a long time. I live in a city centre apartment. I love it. It's great. It's difficult, believe me. It was difficult for a big chunk of lockdown, and actually well-designed communal areas and kind of roof gardens, that kind of thing, and how you manage the access to those is a thing for operators that's been a real challenge of COVID, but was something that they have to get to grips with. But well-designed urban centres can cope with that. It's not about one or the other. There is definitely a bit of a flight to the suburbs for some people, or to the country, and I think you'll see that everywhere. But I think that this whole idea of the death of the cities or no more apartments isn't realistic.
If I could just add one thing, what I've seen is that, especially in Canada, there's been a big change in all of a sudden offering green space in urban centers and tall buildings. All of a sudden, a terrace, a rooftop, something to give you the feeling of nature, even in an urban center. So we're seeing these shifts in these amenities more and more as part of the main offering.
Yeah, how do you see that, Matt? How do you see this changing? How do you see this green development within cities?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. I mean, my experience is kind of limited on big apartment development, but what I have kind of seen in the market is a definite increase in build to rent. So lots of investors and institutional developers have got into the build to rent scene. So actually, huge blocks of apartments are being built in cities for the purposes of just renting, and I don't think that's slowing down. So I think, as David mentioned, it's going to be some sort of hybrid between getting your fix on nature and living in a city. So whether that's green gardens and better kind of building smart homes to blend the two together, I think that's probably where the future is going to land.
Yeah, and Graziella, how do you see this into the also when you look into the theme of smart cities? Smart cities are maybe also green cities. It's not only about technology; it's also how to create a place where people really want to be.
Yes, I guess so. I guess that nature is one of the 20 areas in which we try to define our new concept of smart cities. You know, smart is a old-fashioned word in a always changing world. So actually what we try to do is to build a new taxonomy, because smart is everything what is also inclusive, healthy. So we try to integrate into our district what we do, 6 qualities. So new districts should be efficient, healthy, digital, attractive, informative, and they should be also inclusive. Of course, nature and the greenery is part of this, but it's not the only one. We should think in a more comprehensive and 360 degrees to this new concept.
Yeah, and then for sure with the big cities are now having also a problem probably with what we have here in the Netherlands, for instance, is to keep the young people also into the cities, because apartments or you're buying your first house or renting your first house is really getting difficult. I don't know how it is in Canada or in Italy or in the UK. But it's getting more and more difficult. How can we get those young people also a place in our cities?
I think that affordability is one of the key issues. I was totally on Alexandra's page when she talked about social housing. So affordability is one of the key issues for the future of housing. Generally speaking, I think that low and medium income families should have the opportunity to live also in the center of the cities, not in the outskirts, because it's difficult to to live far away from where you work. So what is generally unspeakable for a new district is to be very well connected from a mobility point of view to the city center, and to have to try to combine the affordability with the innovations of the smart city. This is the new challenge, and this is maybe the new frontier that all the real estate operators should begin to face.
How do you see that, Matt? How do you create like faster buildings that will be also be affordable with using of technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's another kind of angle to look at it as well in terms of like using London as an example. It's becoming increasingly densely populated, and now with the ability to work from home and the actual fact that actually maybe you don't have to live in London anymore, any big city, it becomes the outskirts and the suburbs become increasingly more attractive just because of an affordability reason, and also being close to nature. So maybe the attraction point to live in that city is becoming less and less appealing. So there's a challenge there for developers and city planners to make it, a little bit more attractive to stay there, not just for the work. Because I mean, I lived in London myself for 5 years, and it was primarily just because that's where my office was. But now I'm remote, I can move somewhere much cheaper, basically.
Yeah, so what is the next step then for the future of housing? Because if we are going to work more in our houses, then we need to create also a place where we can work.
So I think it's the mix of tenures, is when I was trying to make in the presentation, is that we tend to fixate on one type of housing and build a lot of that. And actually what we need is a mix. So to the affordability points, a lot of sectors across globally, investors are looking at co-living So a mix in terms of addressing that affordability, more shared spaces, more shared means in order to reduce the cost. There's a very sensitive balance around A, the quality, and B, the space available to those. And again, that's one of the things I tried to raise in the presentation, is that space standards being avoided by people going, well, we've made this old office into housing. It'll do. It's a bedroom, have it, but it really isn't a quality space for somebody to be in. That's a real challenge between housing numbers, actual quality of housing that one can and should be. So that is the way we're struggling.
What do you think is then the quality? Do we have like a co-living space with is really small, with a good surroundings and good green stuff, but also a good restaurant or maybe a swimming pool?
Yeah, I think the point is you have that mix of uses. So that's why I was talking about placemaking, and it's like, because it's not enough just to deliver the asset, not enough just to deliver the apartment. You've got to think more holistically. The real estate system is not structured to do so in terms of the financing structures and the planning and delivery and development structures, but actually the wonderful thing about kind of the smart city movement and the technology capacity is that is re-engineering every bit of property value chain. So it is forcing it from the customer end back. So the decisions are now not only around how something is funded and the red line that they've got to deliver.
What's interesting to see is, and we're seeing this with several, and it's not strictly in Canada, I'm seeing it in the Middle East, I'm seeing it in parts of Canada and even in Europe, the community within the community. So it's to be able to give not just the housing, but the commercial, all of, you're trying to create a community environment within an urban center. So it almost looks like a bubble. And all the Americans call that the gated community. It's not that. It's really about giving them an integrated lifestyle that they can have, from their housing to their shopping to everything, with incredible access to public transit. Although public transit, there are questions about the health conditions of public transit, and I guess that's a conversation for another day. But also reusable water, reusable energy, that's all being brought into play. More accessibility for bikes. One thing we're very poor in North America is cycling, and it's incredible to see how we haven't adopted the European model of as much of the cycling. It's starting to happen in these communities. So we're seeing less cars, less need for that mobile, that investment, because that's a very expensive investment when you talk about having to get a car, parking, gas, and so on. But to find other ways to keep people mobile, and young people, and I have 20-something-year-olds myself, and they're looking to their first home, and they're looking, they just can't afford it. But these communities are starting to offer them that ability to avoid certain expenses so that they can live a certain lifestyle that they've been really accustomed to.
If I may add, sorry. Yeah. I think that we should invest as real estate developers or operators in lifetime selling to our clients, lifetime digital services, because we invested a lot in the past on the location. Now nothing is no more on the location because of the affordability of the land. So we should invest in having recurring revenues from our clients who buy our homes or who rent them through brokerage fees, via distributing these services via digital, via a digital environment. So let's say an application or a platform in which you can deliver services and helping those young people stay together, and also taking benefit from services that they cannot find anywhere else. I mean,
what kind of services do you think about?
Like babysitting, do the laundry, do houseworks, whatever a family can need, or a single, or even other kind of population will need. Also, the other on the other pole of the young, there is of course the retired person. So the retired person needs other services, like maybe he or she may need to get to know, to meet new people, because they would like to, feel like themselves are useful to the society. So maybe this is the way to bring together also cross-generational topics. Okay, so maybe a retired woman can, do something for a lady who is in work as a manager, or this kind of services can bring really the society to become a community. And this can really exist within a co-living building, because in a co-living, as Alexandra was saying, there are different kind of ages of population, and they can live together and benefit from these kind of services.
Yeah, how do you see that, Matt? Because I think what you guys do at Place Technologies is to also digitalize all the assets. So yeah, you can create new business models around that for people that live in those buildings. How do you see this?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of what we do at Place is wrap a digital product around a physical asset. So it's digitization of the whole life cycle of property. And just to echo the kind of community point that was mentioned, that's something that we're very kind of focused on as well through what we call Place Play. So Place Build is the development of the site, and then Place Play is activated once the homeowners bought the property, and then they can easily communicate with the neighbouring developments and organise social events, etc. So it really, I think, digital world has a place to play in socialising communities and really emphasising the importance of that social interaction. I think it's bringing people together rather than pulling them apart. So yeah, I think that's the future where I see it is much better integrated social developments which are digitised and yeah, just better planned and well led.
Cool. Yeah, Alexandra, you talked already in your keynote about the importance of creating communities. But which is the most important element for you to create a good community? And do you have an example of that?
Yes, I think one of the temptations is to either just go, well, we've created an app, so you can have your parcels. That, you know, every building, whether if it's an apartment block that's a high-end kind of for sale one or a multifamily or a build-to-rent one, will already have an app. You can get your parcels delivered, and there's a notional drive to kind of meet your neighbours through it. And maybe there's a kind of once a month cheese and wine thing that's a bit awkward. And I think there's a real balance around kind of putting on an event for the sake of an event, and actually something that organically builds a community of common interests. So at an early stage, you can design and things into those kind of larger schemes, like quite often cycle hubs are really, really popular. Childcare, as Graziella said, huge important, often really needed. But quite often those kind of things will happen organically. Actually, the smartest operators that I've worked with in the UK will tend to fit out 2/3 of their communal areas and then leave a little bit of space to see what that community wants. Whenever we tend to kind of do the demographic analysis, particularly for urban areas, the assumption will be that it's kind of the young professional people who will be renting. And actually every single build-to-rent or multifamily community that I've seen go up in the past 10 years in the UK has had a much broader demographic spread. And so there's one scheme I've seen in Manchester that's had a really popular antique shopping club. And there's another one in London that didn't have any childcare because they weren't targeting families. But actually their communal lounge ended up being used by all the families who moved into the block as a homework club. So actually all the operator then did was fund a once-a-term bus trip for them to go somewhere. So I think allowing it organically, not having that forced fun, it's really important. What that needs is engagement. And that's something that, if you're not a long-term owner-operator, that's not really in your business model. If you just want to develop the building and go, or you just want to invest in the building and then take your return and leave, that's not, you don't really care about that. So it's a different, again, it's the structural shift in a lot, not in the entire industry, but in a lot of the residential investment industry, where some organizations say, actually, we will invest in this building, but also in this community 20 to 25 years. Therefore, we will pay for people whose job it is to be a community manager and to engage on a long-term basis to understand what residents want.
Yeah, David, how do you see that? Because you work at Smartpixeltv, and I always say that you guys are making stuff that is not possible, but it's just amazing to see what you guys create. But when you create the virtual reality of a development, you also have like all the spaces that are close by, like bookshops and public transportation, and everything is in place. Are the developers of the future are right now asking also for these kind of information from you guys? Do we see what's happening into that community?
it's interesting because the consumer demand on, and I'll echo a little bit what Alexandra said, is like where we're at the most of the time, you know, Smart Pixels at the beginning of the stage, pre-construction. We don't see the building, we don't know what's going on, we don't even really know. In many cases, we're seeing developments, and we have a case in a few in Europe where nothing has been really developed in the area, and the expectation is, show me what my future is going to look like. Show me all the details today. I'm not waiting. I don't want to see two-dimensional. I want to see a three-dimensional. I want to see it around. I want to know what's in, not only in my building, but what's in my community. Show me where the, you know, the library is going to be. Show me where the restaurants will be. Yes, it's one part of lifestyle, but it's health. You know, where's the healthcare? Where are the schools at? Whatever. The expectation from the developer today is, you need to provide 100% of this information to a prospective buyer, or they walk away. And it's not just a piece of paper with a list, it's a visual. It's like, it's how far away is the school from your building? How can I get there? What are the, like, you know, if I need to take a subway or a bus or a bike, how far away? If I don't provide that information today, buyers walk away. So even though we're at the beginning and nothing has been, hardly a shovel been put into the ground. As you can see from the building behind me, these two buildings are being built in downtown Montreal. You know, the amount of detail that had to be presented to people to show why this is a worthwhile investment is incredible. And so the demands at the consumer level today are skyrocketing. They're continuing to, the demands are continuing to grow. And if developers do not present it, they will be, you know, out. They won't be able to make, you know, cover their investment, and they will lose out, and they will be known in the community as just money grabbers, as opposed to people who are providing a lifestyle that a consumer's looking for.
Yeah. So Graziella, we talked about community, we talked about green in cities. Well, what else is needed in that smart city to create like the future of housing where people really want to be?
Well, once again, I go back to Alexandra's word. I mean, community managers, these are keys, because actually I am based in Torino, Italy, because here is where our competence center is based, but we mainly operate in Brazil and in India. So, of course, these are developing countries in which, you know, the affordable housing deficit is huge. And so we try to combine the affordability with the innovation. And what we try to integrate every day are these innovations like smart lighting, smart irrigation systems. We try to integrate things that really make the life of people easier, more efficient, less energy consumptions, because this is, at the end of the day, what we would like to have, not smarter in the sense that you use digital stuff, but in the sense that maybe you also feel that you are part of a community, that you can also benefit from the sharing economy. One of our best ranked innovation is the Library of Things. It's just a place in which we buy for as a developer some tools like a drill, like you know, things for doing artworks or arts and crafts, or maybe in India we're trying to integrate a place also with sewing machines for the women to gather together, and that's really a place where they can go spend their spare time or even attend some courses, and they can book, of course, the spaces and the objects via the app. Of course, we don't earn any money from that, but the fact is that we are bringing the community together. And of course, our app is something that they use because they find something very useful for their life. And then maybe if they find also some, of course, through the analytics of big data, then we are going to offer them services, the services that I was mentioning before. So these are the kind of very, very simple things, like even book crossing on a shelf, and I mean that people can exchange their books, or even they can just spend sometimes together in the common space. We have common and shared kitchen. Both in Brazil, of course, they are external, so outdoor, like for doing churrasco, you know, barbecue. Or in India, it's different, but they have maybe also for the retired people, they have sensorial part in which they can have their songs And also one very, very killer application, I would say, is our what we call innovation hub. It's a community center, basically, in which there are spaces where people can go and attending these courses. And at the beginning, we use this community center as, as a showroom where we can really sell our apartments and our homes. So there is a huge maquette, and we can have a look at their future house. Then, once they have bought their houses, this is becoming a community center in which we will bring together the people and doing these activities that I mentioned before.
Graziella raises a really important point that I think a lot in the UK and certainly in the US and the multifamily market, there's been a bit of an amenities arms race of, a running track on the roof or a luxury swimming pool. Never put a swimming pool high up, they always leak, it's a nightmare. But actually, sometimes it's the really simple things. So in a core of a building where you've got no natural light and lots of pillars and things in the way, people used to spend a huge amount of money on cinema rooms. And they sound like a nice idea, but they're a nightmare to maintain and keep clean. And, it's very challenging as Graziella says to make money out of them. Actually, the best kind of example to your question that I've seen is someone just put a music stand and a $200 piano in a room and some soundproofing on the door. And that was brilliant. It's a way of people will noodle around on pianos all day long, and if they have an instrument or they want to kind of make music, and they can do it with their neighbours but without disturbing anybody. That's a really high value amenity, but it's one that was almost done by accident. So I think things like that library of tools and much more creative things that people can share. Again, there's current challenges about sharing, not space, but also things in terms of cleanliness and COVID. But we would like to think that we can on that we'll be able to get more into that sharing materials and having less stuff. So then actually you could potentially cope with slightly smaller apartments.
Actually, Alexandra, if I may add, it's a very funny thing you said about is one of the things that we're being asked to do, and we've been doing this for years, and Wither's seen it, is, where's the sun at a certain point in the day versus my apartment, because it's going to impact me some way, somehow. And developers are scared to show people the truth. When we work with people, we're telling them, that is one of the top questions that's being asked is, where is the sun at a certain point of the day, and do I want to be oriented in that direction? So you can throw as many pools and gyms as you want in the amenities. It's just the amenities race. I think that's a brilliant statement. But at the end of the day, I'm living in my apartment for so many hours in the day, and if I have to work in my apartment, how is it going to be? What are the conditions going to be like? I need to know that before I even start going further out. And the developers have to be a lot more aware of these small details and not just try to sell boxes, but that people are aware of energy savings. They're aware of using solar power or lighting or whatever. And this is not being right now. We're not seeing enough of this, I should say, on this side of the Atlantic. Yeah.
Well, we're going to round this round table off, but before we do that, I would like to give you all the last words. Matt, what are your last words on the future of houses, of housing?
So I kind of been what we say at places, like frame it around the 3 Ds, which is decarbonisation, democratisation, and digitalisation. And I think it's going to be more of those, really. So just the greater magnitude on helping people design and build really green out homes, essentially.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. And what do you think? What are your last thoughts that you want to share?
Well, I guess that after we are going to offer all of these services, all of these spaces, then it comes to maintenance. So key word for maintenance is letting the people take care of their spaces so that they engage. And then, in India, there are this organization they are called societies. And so the society is an organization that is taking care of the space. So to invest on how to teach the residents to take care of the spaces.
Thank you. And David?
The urban center isn't dead. Let's be realistic. London, Amsterdam, Rome, Montreal, Toronto, New York, these are not dead markets. They are still thriving. They're still growing. It's just a painful time right now, and that patience is required. But again, a paradigm shift in the thinking of what we're going to provide to the next generation, to young people, to Graziella's point, even to retired people or seniors. What are we providing them? We have to be more aware. We're not, again, as I said before, we're not providing a box. We're providing a lifestyle. And that is how developers need to start thinking.
Cool, thank you. Alexandra, what are your last thoughts about this?
I think, as I concluded my keynote, successful places put people first. So it's not enough just to build the building. It's not enough to treat it as an asset. It's not enough, however wizzy your technology capacity is. It's not just to have that thing. It's about how that interacts with the community and how they interact with one another. And it's about enabling. Technology is a fantastic enabler, but it does not deliver on its own. And if we can get past this idea of like static numbers, but actually putting the people first in that interaction, I think then the future of housing can be really positive.
So the technology is just a tool, but we really need to start listening to the end user.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's a nice wrap up of today's panel. Thank you, Alexandra, for your keynote, and thank you, the panelists, for joining this session. I hope you have all a great day and enjoy Real Estate Futureproof a little bit more. So I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good day, everybody.